Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we will be learning how to make an ice cream cone in Procreate. We've done this before with watercolors, so if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out. I go further in detail on how to illustrate an ice cream cone in that video. But today we'll be focusing on learning a couple of different features in Procreate, like clipping masks, blending, and different layer modes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so now what I'm doing is I'm opening up a canvas. I'm just choosing 2048 by 2048 pixels. This is the optimal size, I guess, because I want to share it on Instagram later. So once I've done that, I'm selecting the sketch brush. It's called the 6B pencil. And I'll be using that to sketch two circles and a upside down triangle underneath. Procreate has an ability to use guides, and I highly encourage you use that to kind of center your drawing and get an idea how big you want it in relation to everything else. Here, these guides are helping me center my circle and then find the center point to create an area to the bottom and be able to create like the cone essentially. So now I've created that. I'm just resizing it, moving it down a bit, and I'm gonna go ahead and start drawing the second scoop of ice cream. I'm adding a different layer underneath just so that I can move this top cone around freely or resize it if I need to. So this is where I'm just kind of trying to estimate and see exactly just if the top scoop is bigger than the bottom one, and just really trying to get it down as much as I can. So once I do that, if you pinch the layers together, it consolidates the layer. So now that's what I'm doing. Now it's time to actually outline my sketch. So I'm going into my drawing brush or my inking brush. I'm going to use the Studio Pen, and I've modified the Studio Pen a little bit. I'll go ahead and link the download in the description box, but it'll take you to my website and then you can go ahead and download the brush. But now I'm just going in and I'm just, outlining my sketch because I can't begin to emphasize how important it is to create a clean outline. So because it makes coloring in, filling in a lot more easier when you have a very clean guide to work with. As you can see here, I'm also erasing the lines that I don't need, like that bottom circle intersecting, I don't need that. And then similarly, I'm going to be making a circle on the top, but going to be erasing the lines later because I realize that I want the type of look I'm going for, at least for the ice cream scoop, is a very specific, clean type of look. So that's what we're going to be doing. I'm going to go ahead and add another layer, and now I'm going to work on drawing the ruffles on the bottom of each scoop. And a way to do that is by adding a new layer and then creating a reference line. So these two parallel lines that I've created are just essentially reference lines, and that's why I'm putting the opacity down a bit. So from here, it gives me a bit of a guide to create the little ruffles on the bottom, and that's what I'm doing all the way around. So once I do that, I can go ahead and erase or just delete the layer that I no longer need, my reference layer. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that. Alright, so I've named my layers, I've done everything is organized. It's really good to name your layers. Now I'm actually going to go in and start playing with color. Now this is a pretty fun part, and I encourage you all to go crazy, but I'm going to give you a few tips of what I do. So before I go in and really color anything, I like to create blobs on the side and see how colors are working together. So in this scenario, I'm taking the color just right next to my pink on the color wheel. I believe they're called analogous colors. So this is basically helping me understand what colors do I need. Here, as you can see, I was playing around with just the color of the cone and the pinks and the yellow, and just trying to get a feel of everything. And once I do that, I'm going to create a palette. Now you can create a palette by clicking on the palette option on the bottom of the colors tool and just create a new one. So I'm going to be linking my palette as well in the description. It'll take you to my website and you can download it from there. It's all free. But here, now I'm going to be just filling in my colors and seeing how this works. And so one of the features that Procreate actually comes with is this thing called the reference layer. And basically, if you click on change the options of a layer to become a reference layer, you're able to easily fill in the colors just like that. And it does leave a little bit of a white gap in between, but honestly, I don't mind it, and I kind of like the look of it, to be honest. So the colors that I'm using to color in the reference layer is the layer on top. So I've gone ahead and done that. Now what I'm doing is I know for my ice cream cone, I want to add some type of like toppings. So I'm going to be adding those colors onto the side and just playing around with different color combinations and things that I like or things that I don't like. Okay, so now I've decided that I'm going to use blue. I'm using again the studio pen to add a little sprinkles, I guess, onto my ice cream cone, and zooming in and out, like just playing around with it. Clearly I didn't like the idea, so I'm going back and adding dots instead, different varieties, making sure that things like come out to the edge and just kind of seeing how it looks. Now this is just the basic application, and then we'll add some more character to them, like shading and lighting and whatnot. The second one that I'm drawing are just little like sprinkles, like longer oval sprinkles on top. And again, like one of the things you need to remember to do is make sure you get it on the sides and kind of make it seem like it's falling over. So now that I have my ice cream, I'm going to go ahead and add the shading and different colors to it. So I'm going to be changing my layer option to make it multiple, and multiple essentially gives you a way to add, like automatically applies the shadow color to the color that you're using. So in this instance, I'm using pink, and without changing that color, I'm able to change the layer to multiply and get this really bright color of pink. But in all honesty, it looks a little bit too bright to me. So I'm going to adjust the saturation and the brightness a bit and just play around with that until I get the right shade. That's also a great benefit of this, is that if you like your strokes and you just want to change the color a bit, you can go ahead and easily do that on the layers. Similarly, I'm making sure that my brown layer is selected. I'm going to be adding a shadow on the bottom of that and just cleaning things up, as I go. Okay, so now it's time to add the lighting and some dimensions to the toppings. So essentially what I'm doing now is playing around with different brushes, and I really encourage you to do this in your illustration. That's really only the way you're going to understand like your preferences and what you like. But I'm using one of the luminous brushes here to add a bit of white to make it just seem like there's like a light reflecting off of the sprinkles, just a tad bit, the little polish that comes with it. So now that I've done that, what I'm also realizing is that I don't want it to look like it's absolutely clear cut, like cleanly cut around the edges. I do want it to seem like the sprinkles are just popping up slightly off the ice cream cone. So just making those small adjustments here and there. But yeah, it's really thinking about like what are other ways you can just amplify your drawing. So one of those ways is adding the lighting to it, and then another one is adding shadow. So here, as you can see, it's very, very light shadow, but it absolutely does make a difference to your drawing. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that up. All right, so now as I'm finishing up the lighting on the the sprinkles or the dots on the top of the ice cream cone, I'm realizing that I need to make sure that my shadows make sense in my drawing. So essentially what I do is on the corner of my page, I say, I highlight like a lighting source, and then from there I'm just adjusting some of my shadows to make sure that the shadows are casting properly on things on top of it or underneath it, and you know what I mean. So I'm just going back in and just making those small adjustments, but yeah, making sure like the lighting source is correct, and your shading makes a lot of sense, is really important. It kind of reminds me of that one scene from The Office where Dwight is kind of judging Pam's drawing, where there's like two shadows in her drawing, like two different shadows coming from different directions. So I definitely want to avoid Dwight's judgment there, but yeah, so just going in, fixing that up, and just adjusting the hue and the colors a bit once I apply the multiple preset to my layers. All right, now it's time to also add shading to the cone, the ice cream cones itself. I know that we had a little bit shading done of the ice cream cone casting on one another, but then there's also lighting that is coming in from the right hand side. So I'm just trying my best to lower the opacity a little bit, playing around with preferences. Honestly, the only way we actually know how any of these layer preferences work is by just like messing around with it a bit. So that's what I'm doing a bit here. So once I kind of like that, I play around with that. I'm also, as you can see, I was just adding some testing shading to it too. And now I'm going ahead and applying the same shading that I did on the sprinkles on top. I'm doing it to the sprinkles on the bottom too. All right, so we're just about done here. The only thing that's really left to do is add the eyes and the smile. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. One of my favorite things about Procreate is, you know, really maximizing on the usage of layers. If you want to be able to move things around and adjust things, you really easily can do that. So make sure you really leverage layers and just not draw everything just on top of one another, but separate them by layers. And then also naming your layers is very, very helpful, because later on when you, if you ever move this out into Photoshop, you know exactly what you're looking at. Okay, so as I was finishing this up, I realized that I want to add some character to the cone, and one of the ways to do that is to use the canvas grid that is available, and then also using a combination of assistant drawing. So assistant drawing, essentially what it does, it basically just helps you follow the lines of your grid. So here, as you can see, I wanted to create a checkered pattern on my cone, and I'm able to do that with assisted drawing. Okay, so I apologize about the choppy clips a bit. It's my camera just keeps shutting off whenever I'm trying to record. But now is the time to add the background color and any other finishing touches I want. Here I realized that the eyes were a bit too small, so I made them a bit bigger. I'm going into the background layer and just like moving the color along and seeing what I like, and then saving different preferences that, you know, I think look nice. But I think I'm going to settle for the baby pink. I think that one looks really, really cute. So yeah, this was a quick tutorial on how to draw an ice cream cone in Procreate. And now I'm just adding the finishing touches and just cleaning up the files a bit. I'll do a video about this maybe some other time, because there is maybe a process to this and highlighting the best practices. But for now, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the subscribe button and give me a like, and I will catch you next time.